There's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is that I'm pretty sure this was my worst meetup game result. The good news. The insanity from Tampa that is a meetup game down here in Florida is a go. All these tables back here, meetup games, and we're like probably like 4 hours before the official start time of this meetup game. There's already like 8 to 10 tables running. It's going to be a crazy one today. We're playing 3-5 no limit hold'em. We are buying in for the maximum of $1,500. We are going to play a large quantity, a large percentage of hands dealt to us, and probably going to play some bomb pots and straddles and et cetera, et cetera. So the question is, will we need to reload 3 or 4 times? Let's hope not. Let's try and get these guys. Let's get them good. Hopping in right now.
It's my first ever time in Tampa, Florida. It's been a long time, several years since we've done a meetup game in Florida, and the room is packed to the gills. We've got ourselves 20 tables that we can utilize, and we have 20 tables for this 3-5 no limit hold'em meetup game. Worth of people, amazing turnout, and we've even got the legendary commentator himself, Vince Van Patten, in the mix playing in this meetup game.
It's Vince! Who doesn't like to see this friendly face at the meetup game?
I'm so excited to be here. I want to just get my money back. Andrew, give me my money back.
We're going to be into this game for $1,500, which is the max buy-in. Lots of tables to get to, which is going to lead to lots of poker hands, so let's get into it. In this first hand, the straddle is on, $10 under the gun. Folds around to me in the small blind. We have Queen 8 of hearts. I think it's playable. Let's bring it in for a raise. I make it $40, and the straddler makes the call. Heads up to Jack 8-4 with 2 clubs. Flop ourselves middle pair here. Don't really want to give any free cards, so I'm going to put out a bet. I make it $35. The straddler puts in a raise right away, $125, and we're put to the test in hand number 1 here. So it's unlikely that he's going to have pocket jacks, since he didn't 3-bet pre-flop. We have removal to pocket 8s and Jack 8. Unlikely that he has Jack 4 or 8-4. So that leaves pocket 4s as his most likely value holding, and that's not a lot of combinations. So I'm not going to give it up just yet. I make the call. We're off to a turn card, which is a brick. I check it, and this time he checks back, so I'm feeling even better now about my pair of 8s. River's an offsuit 9. I like that card a little bit less because he could be raising with a hand like 9-10 on the flop, or maybe a combo draw like Queen 10 of clubs. I'm going to check it, and it goes check again here on the river. We show it down, and we are good. The sign of things to come. Buckle up. Probably going to be put to the test here down in Florida. No shortage of action in the Sunshine State. All right, we got this table talked into a full round of straddles now, and in this hand, the under the gun player makes it $30 to go. Button makes the call, and we are in the small blind looking down at Ace-5 of diamonds. This is one of those premier 3-bet squeeze bluffing hands, the Ace-5 of diamonds. It's suited, and you can make a wheel, so when you get called, it at least has some playability to it, and with an ace, it has removal to some strong hands. So I'm gonna go for it. I put in the 3-bet to $155. The big blind promptly jams all in. So that worked great. It folds all the way back to me. I'm gonna fold, and the big blind shows Ace King. Take it down. All right, as if those 2 hands weren't interesting enough, it is time for some absolute pure insanity. We've waited long enough. So in this hand, the straddle is still on, and the player who is first to act throws in 2 chips, but it's not 2 red chips for the $10 call of the straddle. It's 2 black chips, $200. First to act, $200. Action folds around to me, and we look down at pocket 7s. Now, the question becomes, did this player grab the wrong chips and make an honest mistake trying to call the $10 and accidentally make it $200? Or is this an angle where this player did in fact mean to make it $200 and is only pretending that this was an accident and is raising from under the gun with a very strong hand, such as aces, kings, queens, ace, king, something of the sort. Pocket sevens, we don't necessarily have to get in the mix with pocket sevens. I would say maybe a hand like jacks or tens or something. I would feel a lot more as if this was a mandatory get in. Of course, the ace king will be in there too, but pocket sevens, we don't necessarily need to take the risk, but what fun would that be? That wouldn't make for a very fun video, nor would it make for a fun meetup game moment. So we're gonna take our chances here. We're gonna gamble on the fact that it was a mistake. We are going to raise the pocket sevens. It wouldn't make any sense to flat call. We're nowhere near deep enough to set mine in this instance, and there's gonna be tons of flops where we don't know what to do. So it's a raise or fold moment, and I decide raise. This opponent only has a little under $500 or so, between $400 or $500. So I raise, and action folds back to that player. We do not get immediately snapped off, and when we find that little bit of a pause, it's very good news because that opponent must have made a mistake making it $200. She says, why not? She's gonna go for it because she has lots of money.
Yeah, I'll go for it. I mean, I have lots of money.
Well, she sticks the money in. I ask if it was on purpose or not, and she says no, it was definitely not on purpose, and it is a true story because she rolls over the jack six of diamonds. So we're in pretty good shape here. Of course, she's got one overcard, but when the flop comes down, king, king, 3 with 2 hearts and no diamonds, that's a great flop for us. She does find some life on the turn when it comes to 6, so now she can improve with another 6 or a jack on the river, and the river comes down.
Over there.
Not exactly some run good here, but of course you love to see it, love to see the enthusiasm. Shout out to this player. She goes by the name Erin, and after the fact, she bought me a beer, so I guess we're all even.
Cheers. Seems we're even.
All right, straddle is still on here, and there's one $10 limp before action folds over to me in the cutoff, looking down at 6-4 of clubs. I'm going to raise it up to $50, and this is clearly out of line here, but it is what it is, and the straddler and the limper make the call. King 9-6 with 2 spades and 1 club checks over to me, and I check it back. Turn is a 10 of clubs, giving us a flush draw to go along with our pair now. Straddler checks, player in the hijack bets $80. We've got ourselves a pair and a flush draw. We're going nowhere. I make the call, and straddler folds. River is a favorable one. It's the ace of clubs giving us a flush. He checks it over to me. We just have to decide how much to bet now. I think I'm gonna have some bluffs here. I could have a hand like 6-8, something like that picks up a straight draw with a pair. Maybe if I have a hand like 8-9 that I want to turn into a bluff that I don't think is going to win at showdown, can turn something like that into a bluff. There's of course some other missed draws here. There's the front door flush draw, and as mentioned, there is some pair plus gutter balls type stuff happening. So I'm going to size up here. I'm going to make it $380, but it appears that's a little too on the greedy side. My opponent folds. Don't get any river value, but we do take it down. All right, in this hand, action folds over to the player in the cutoff, who raises it up to $50. And you might be thinking that the straddle is on with that sizing, but no, there is no straddle on. It's just an open raise in a 3-5 game to $50 out of the cutoff. We look down at ace-king offsuit on the button. Versus such a massive sizing, I'm really unsure here what to do. Normally, this is an auto 3-bet, but versus the 10x open size, I'm just going to default to a flat call, take this one post-flop, and we go heads up to a flop, which comes down 8-7-5 with 2 hearts. Obviously not a great flop for us, so when he checks it over to us, I check it back. Turn is a 9, and now he bets for another $50. This is not our board. We have a pretty trivial fold here, and he flashes me ace-6. Not the hand I had in mind, not the hand I would have guessed, but it's the winner. All right, in this hand, the straddle is on, and I am the man who put it on. Straddle is actually on this time. Folds over to the button, who makes it $35. The big blind makes the call, and we look down at 2 kings in the straddle. Pretty sweet spot here. Premium hand, there's a raise, and we don't usually get credit when the straddler puts in another raise. I'm gonna make it $150 here to go, and action folds through. Sadness. Sadness. In this next hand, there's an early position raised to $30, and we look down at ace-king off again this time, and it's versus that same player who opened huge the other hand. So I'm going to 3-bet it this time after seeing that he raised with ace-6 before, and it's a lesser amount this time. I make it $100 to go on his direct left. The button cold calls, and the initial raiser calls as well. So 3 ways to a flop, which comes down Jack 5-4 all spades. Not the flop that we had in mind once again, and this time action checks through. Turns an offsuit 7. The early position player leads for $150. I fold, and I decide to watch this hand, see what happens. The button makes the call. Turns an offsuit 3. Early position player bets out for $400 this time. That bet does not get called. Action folds through, and the early position player shows 8-6 of diamonds. You gotta love a good suited one gapper, you guys. I've been telling you. So you can straddle from anywhere in this game, and the hijack player who was away from the table and missed some blinds, he comes back in for the straddle. The cutoff is first to act, and he calls dark, and we are on the button with queen 6 of clubs. Not exactly sure what the GTO play here is with the queen 6 facing 2 dark hands behind me, so I decide on a little limp. There's one more limper and the straddler checks, so 4 ways to a flop, which comes down queen 10-6 with 2 hearts. 3 checks over to me. I'm gonna bet this. It's very draw heavy, and we've got a pretty good hand here, so I bet just about pot. I bet $40, and only the cutoff makes the call. Turns an offsuit king, and he checks it, and I'm not gonna stop betting here. This hand could definitely improve some holdings where we still have the best hand, and we want to charge some draws, not really give a free card in this spot. So I bet $125, and he calls again. So off to a river card, which comes down an offsuit ace, putting 4 to Broadway up on the board now. He checks it. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure where I'm at in this hand, which is kind of typical when you limp in with queen 6 of clubs. I decide to check it back. We go to showdown, and my opponent shows us king 3 offsuit. That's a pair, but 1 pair loses to 2 pair. We're good here. In this next hand, no straddle on, and we see a middle position raise to $50. I don't know what's going on here. The old 10x raise is just a normal thing. Folds over to us on the button, looking down at ace 9 of clubs. You know what? I didn't come all the way to Tampa to fold suited ace on the button. I'm in there no matter how big of a raise. You could put your whole stack in there. I'm calling. I got a suited ace. I'm in. All right, heads up to a flop. Comes down ace 10-6, 2 hearts. He puts out a c bet of $80. We got top pair. We are making the call. Turns an offsuit 8. This time he checks it. I'm happy to slow down here. I don't think I can get 3 streets versus a big pocket pair, and I can pot control versus better aces. River's an offsuit 5. He checks it to me again. Maybe it's worth a bet now, but I just decided to play it safe. I check it back. I announce that I can beat kings, and he rolls over a similar hand close to that, pocket jacks. And it's always a treat when you get to watch somebody's friend laugh at them at a poker table when they lose a hand.
Buddy, he's laughing at his buddy.
Great hand, dude.
You always lose with Jiggity.
Great hand.
We got him. We got him.
In this next hand, I straddle in the cutoff. There's an early position raise to $30. The player next to him makes the call, and we have ace 6 offsuit in the straddle, getting a reasonable price, so I make the call. 3 ways to ace, jack, deuce, rainbow. The initial raiser bets $55. Player on his left calls. We've got ourselves top pair, can't fold, I call. Turns the queen of diamonds, and this time the early position player bets $150. Next player folds, and we're sort of looking for a reason to fold here. Definitely wasn't looking to hero call all the way down here with top pair, terrible kicker. So not much choice here. I let it go, and the initial raiser shows pocket aces. So apparently they're allowed to get good hands down here too. In this hand, there's an under the gun raise to $20 with no straddle on, and we are in the low jack looking down at ace queen of clubs. I think I'm pretty happy to 3-bet this hand in a raked game. Typically in that environment, it's best to either build up a big pot with a good hand or try and take it down pre-flop. So that's what I'm going for here with that 3-bet to $60. The button finds a good hand as well, apparently, and he 4-bets it to $175. Initial raiser folds over to me. We've got 40% of a royal flush, suited ace, ace queen. It's pretty. I don't like folding. I call. Heads up to a flop, which comes down king 10-9 with 2 spades. I check it. My opponent bets $200. We've got ourselves a gut shot straight draw to the nuts, but there's 2 spades on board. We don't have any of those, and there's no reason why my opponent can't have a huge hand on this board. So I'm not going to press the issue. I decide to fold, and we do not get to see a showdown. In this hand, no straddle on. There's a middle position raised to $15. The button makes the call, and we are in the big blind looking down at a premium hand, 9 deuce of clubs. Getting a very good price here. So I toss in the extra $10, and we go 3 ways to a flop that comes down about as favorable as you could hope for with the 9 deuce of clubs, 10-8-7 with 2 clubs. I check it, middle position player checks it, and the button puts out a wager of $25. I think if there's ever a time to semi-bluff, this has to be the one, so I make it $80 to go. And the initial raiser cold calls, while the button folds. So not exactly the result we expected, but we go heads up to the turn card, which is the 5 of clubs, giving us the flush. I suppose we could just continue barreling away, but with the 9 high flush and with that cold call, it makes me a little bit uneasy. So I decided to check it, and my opponent checks it back. River's an offsuit 3. I feel very strongly that we have the best hand here after a turn check through, so I'm gonna go for some value to the tune of $250, and my opponent goes into the tank. So we're looking pretty good and hoping for a call, which we get. We get the call, we roll it over, and we are, in fact, good. In this hand, there's an early position raised to $15. There's one call, and we are in the small blind looking down at the best hand ever created, pocket aces. I'm 3-betting. I make it $80 to go. The initial raiser gets out of the way, and the second guy makes the call. So, heads up to a flop, which comes down 8-7-6 rainbow. These middling flops with these middling connected cards don't really favor the 3-better all that much. Definitely a better board for the pre-flop caller, so I'm gonna check it, and action checks through. Offsuit 7 on the turn. I check it again, and this time my opponent bets $60. I'm not going anywhere with pocket aces. I make the call, and the river is a 9, so now there's 4 to a straight on the board. I check it, and this time my opponent checks it back, and he shows ace-9 of hearts. Maybe I could have taken a slightly different line here. Maybe I could have started betting on the turn perhaps, but I don't think we were getting 3 streets, and we certainly could have found a better board to go for more value on. In this hand, the under the gun player makes it $15. The player on the button makes the call, and we are in the small blind looking down at King Jack of hearts. I think suited Broadway hands make for pretty good 3-bet candidates, so I'm going to put in the squeeze out of the small blind. I make it $80 to go, but neither player is in a folding mood. They both make the call. 3 ways to a flop that comes down ace-10-6 rainbow. Flop ourselves a gutter ball here, and we should have a pretty fair range advantage, I would think. I'm going to bet $85, but once again, both players make the call. Turn is the Jack of clubs, second club, so we pick up a pair. I'm going to slow down with a check and see what happens, but action checks all the way through. River is a king, so we end up with 2 pair, but 4 to a straight on board once again. I check it, and the under the gun player bets $175 this time. Other player folds, and it's back to us, and we have to decide between a hero call, because my opponent would never bet worse for value, or let it go with those 4 cards to a straight on the board. I'm not too sure what he could turn into a bluff here. Trying to find a hand that has a pair in it that he could turn into a bluff. Something along the lines of 10-9 maybe. Something that had some connection on the flop, but then doesn't really like to run out either. I'm not really finding too many such hands though, and usually people aren't finding too many bluffs on the river, so I decide to let my 2 pair go. And after I do so, he asks if we want to see it, which is always a bad sign. I say sure, give us the pain, and he shows us pocket 9s. Ouch. Gets us good there. Just decides to float the flop and finds a pretty good run out to find a barrel on the river, turning his 9s into a bluff. His name is Andrew. Nice wager there, fellow Andrew. Take it down. No straddle on in this hand, just the $3 small blind, $5 big blind, and we look down at King 10 offsuit from early position. Probably should find its way into the muck, but in a meetup game, it's very raisable, so I make it $20 to go. There's 2 callers in position, and the big blind calls as well. 4 ways to a flop that comes down King Jack 8 rainbow, giving us top pair. Big blind checks. I'm going to bet it here. Multi-way. Tend to just play pretty straightforward. Top pair. Worth a bet. I bet $55. The 2 players who are in position on me make the fold, and the big blind makes the call. Heads up to the deuce of hearts on the turn. Second heart. He checks, and he's got a little bit under $200 in his stack at this point. Checking is not going to make too much sense here. If we're up against a better hand on the flop, I think we might have heard from him some percentage of the time. So I'm just going to bet, and bet enough to cover his stack. I toss out 2 black chips, and my opponent thinks about it for a little bit before shrugging and making the call. I announce my hand right away. He doesn't show his cards. The river comes out. It's an offsuit 4. Doesn't change anything, and he sends his cards into the muck. It's at this point of the night when the wheels are just about ready to come completely off, and all the game takes is a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of peer pressure to put on the straddle, the double straddle, the triple straddle, the quadruple straddle, the quintuple straddle, and the sextuple straddle. And that's what happens in this hand. The 3, 5, 10, 20, 40, 80, 160 is in effect here, and action folds around to me in the small blind, looking down at pocket jacks, which is an absolute premium in this situation. We don't have a lot of big blinds when the $160 straddle is on, so we're raising here and we're not going to be folding. I make it $600 to go, and we probably could have just jammed all in, but that's kind of beside the point. Folds over to the straddler, who looks down at his holding, and he finds a hand that he is willing to go with himself. He jams it all in for $1,250 effective. As mentioned, we're going nowhere with pocket jacks, so we make the call. We're off to the races here in what suddenly is a $2,500 pot out of nowhere. Flop comes down, absolutely terrible for the pocket jacks, and what's even worse is that my opponent says we need to hit a king. The turn comes, another 10, and that is going to seal the deal for my opponent, who turns over pocket tens, also known as quads. Not exactly the run out of dreams for our pocket jacks, and especially in the biggest pot of the night, in what was the most ridiculous pot of the night. Pocket jacks are never going to get folded in this spot, and it's just an automatic loss of $1,250. This story doesn't even stop there, though. There was a very special promotion going on during this meetup game. The World Poker Tour was giving away not one, not two, but 3 seats into the $3,500 championship event during WPT Tampa stop here. The way that those seats were going to be awarded was through the high hand of each hour from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. This pocket tens turned into quads ends up holding up for the high hand of this hour, and Quinn, my opponent in this hand, has earned himself a $3,500 championship event seat. I will update you guys on how Quinn ended up doing in that event later on in this vlog. In for a mere $2,700, and in this hand we only have the triple straddle on, so 3, 5, 10, 20, 40, and action folds over to me in the small blind, looking down at 10, 8 of clubs. We find a playable hand, I think. 10, 8 of clubs, not exactly as strong as pocket jacks, but I'm not in a folding mood, especially after that last hand, so I make it $130 to go. The player in the $20 straddle makes the call. So heads up to a flop, comes down Jack, Jack 9 rainbow, which gives us an open ender, definitely worth barreling, so I bet $65, and my opponent calls. Turn is the king of diamonds, second diamond. I'm not going to stop betting. I like these cards that are on the board. I've got a blocker to a straight. I can have some really good hands here. I'm going to bet it. I bet $160, and thankfully my opponent folds. Just the single straddle on in this hand. 3, 5, 10. There's one limp, and we look down at queen 10 of diamonds in middle position. I make it $45 to go. Looking to ISO that limper, but the cutoff is having none of it. He makes it $125 to go. The limper gets out of the way, and we make the call. 40% of our will, of course. So heads up to a flop. It comes down 10, 8 deuce with 2 hearts. Flop ourselves top pair. I check. My opponent bets $80. Very straightforward call. Turn's not a very good one. It's the king of spades, second spade. I check, and this time my opponent bets $200. Not exactly in love with it, but we still have ourselves a pair. We can improve versus a hand such as ace king. Versus pocket kings, we're drawing dead, but we can still improve versus ace king, pocket aces, and of course there's plenty of bluffs available such as ace jack, ace queen, 2 flush draws on board. We don't block either of those, so I make the call off to a river card, which is an offsuit deuce. I check, and my opponent is not done betting, this time $325. Very tough decision here, considering, as mentioned, we do not block either flush draw. Not sure how good it is to have a queen, though. That takes away combos of queen jack that he could definitely barrel with on the turn. Some good attributes and some bad attributes in this hand. And with all the craziness that I've seen in this room during this meetup game, I am feeling like I need to see some proof of good hands so that I can sleep at night. So I'm going to toss in the call here, show me the proof, and we do in fact get shown the proof. My opponent has pocket aces. Looking back on paper, this definitely looks like a bit of a sticky call here on my part. Not sure I'm in love with it. Again, having that queen takes away some of his bluffing hands. I can definitely understand it though. Could have picked up the flush on either the flop or the turn. Again, with all the action happening in this room during this meetup game, not too mad at myself, but on paper, almost certainly a fold. All right, in this hand, just the single straddle is on. We open up queen 9 of hearts in middle position at $35, and we see 2 callers. Flop comes down ace king 4 with 2 hearts. There's one check. Very good flop for our range here. Ace king high boards, definitely worth a C bet in almost all situations. I bet $90, and a player in position promptly jams all in for $430. The other player gets out of the way. Do we likely have the best hand here? I wouldn't say likely. Is it possible for players to jam a worse draw here? Certainly possible. And it's only $430, and we're stuck piles, and it's a meetup game. I'm tossing in the call, and we get extremely bad news. My opponent rolls over the King Jack of Hearts, which means we are almost very close to drawing dead. And there's no happy ending in this hand. We would need to go runner to make 2 pair or trips, and that doesn't happen. Not too long after that, I've decided I've taken enough of a beating in this meetup game. We found plenty of run bad, starting to get very questionable in terms of how good I'm playing, and I decide probably going to be enough donations for this one meetup game. I'm going to rack it up, pack it in, make my way over to the Post Mug Hangout. Now, I did say there would be no happy ending to this vlog, but there is some news to deliver. I mentioned that a player named Quinn won entry into the $3,500 championship event at the WPT Tampa stop. I got updates as he was playing the tournament, and by the end of the day, he mentioned that he had played with Brad and he had bagged a 4th place chip stack, not because he was playing with Brad, but just because he was crushing. He was doing so well. And on day 2, he would keep it going, and he managed to go all the way, not only into the money, but got several pay jumps and scored himself an $11,800 score for finishing in 49th place. Definitely a very cool story and a bit of a silver lining. Even though he cracked my pocket jacks with his pocket 10s making quads, he was able to parlay that into a very nice score, his biggest score ever, and a very cool story to come out of the meetup game here in Tampa at the Seminole Hard Rock.
There's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is that I'm pretty sure this was easily my worst meetup game result. As you saw, things started out pretty well. In the early to mid stages, things were going okay. And then in the mid to late stages, things very much went not okay. That was just an absolute slaughtering. Starting with some very bad beats, and then, of course, me playing a lot of hands is only going to contribute to the damage. So basically, essentially, I like to play a lot of hands in these meetup games. I like to splash around, give a lot of action, not knit it up, not even really... I mean, I'm going to try to win, but I'm not going to put myself in the best position to do so. That's just being honest right there. So there's going to be a lot of hands where I'm not going to have the best of it, and those probably aren't going to go my way. When you combine that with my good hands going down in flames, when you combine that with me getting the money in a dominating position and still losing those hands as well, then that is going to combine to a very not good loss, such as the one that happened today. I got into this game for a lot of money. I cashed out for much less. Egan, the editor, will put the totals right there up on the screen, but it's a loss of about $4,100 in a $1,500 max buy-in game. Not my best performance, not the best run good. Definitely some of the worst variants that I've experienced at a meetup game, and I think, like I said, the worst loss. The good news after all that is that we have a very cool gathering happening back here. Look at that. Look at all these people that are hanging out back here. We got an open bar, which I can utilize to drown my sorrows after that slaughtering as mentioned. So I'm gonna go back here, hang out with some folks here in Tampa.
Cheers. Cheers, brother. Cheers. 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 Cheers.